My family didn't show up to my daughter's birthday party, claiming they were unwell. My father called to let me know. I accepted their excuse, and we carried on with the celebration without them. Later, my sister posted a picture online showing everyone together on a vacation. That's when I decided to shut down the shared bank account, and suddenly, they were desperate to contact me. My daughter's birthday fell on a weekend this year. We had been planning for weeks, a modest backyard event with a rented bounce house, a cake adorned with her favorite animated characters, and colorful balloons to make it special. She was turning 6, and she'd been excitedly counting down the days. Every evening, she asked if her grandparents would be there, and I reassured her they would. I genuinely believed it. That morning, as we set up, I called my father. It was getting late. He picked up and said they couldn't come. Everyone's sick, he said, something going around. That was it. No details, no apologies, just that. I told him I understood, hung up, and didn't mention it to my daughter. Eventually, she noticed. When we brought out the cake, with only my spouse's cousin and their partner there, she kept looking around, as if expecting more guests. Then she quietly asked if her cousin was coming. I said she might be on her way, but deep down I knew the truth. After the party ended and everyone left, we sat in the living room, watching her play with her new toy. I tried to act like everything was fine, not wanting her to focus on who was absent. But then I checked my phone and saw a message that changed everything. It was from my sister. She'd posted a photo on social media with the caption, "Paradise at last." The image showed her, my parents, and her son, all smiling by a beach, cocktails in hand, at what looked like an upscale resort. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment trip. They'd clearly been there for days. I stared at the photo for a long time, not because I couldn't believe they'd lied, but because of how casually they'd done it. No call from my mother pretending to care, no card for my daughter, just silence, followed by a carefree vacation post as if we didn't matter. What stung most wasn't that they skipped the party. It was realizing how long they'd been distant. I hadn't seen them in person for 3 months. Every time I reached out, they had an excuse: too exhausted, under the weather, tight on cash. Meanwhile, they were withdrawing from the joint account I'd set up for them when they claimed they were struggling. My father had been laid off, then my mother. My sister said she couldn't cover expenses after her breakup. They said they just needed help for a short time, so I helped. I opened the account, deposited a few thousand, and added more when it ran low. I never questioned their spending, assuming it was for necessities like food, rent, or clothes for my nephew. I didn't expect lavish vacations and extravagant outings. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't call or text. Instead, I logged into the bank and closed the account. I transferred the remaining balance to my personal account and revoked their access quietly and deliberately. The next morning, my phone rang before I'd finished my tea. It was my father. I answered. He asked what was wrong with the account, saying their card was declined. I played clueless, suggesting it might be a bank error. I kept my tone calm, acting too busy to linger on it. After a pause, he said he'd come by the next day. I told him I might be out. I ignored his calls that evening. I waited, knowing the next day would be different. I was done pretending. I stayed home while my spouse went to work and my daughter to school. I wasn't angry in a loud way, just numb, like something inside me had broken. I knew he'd show up. My father hates losing control. Closing the account ensured this wouldn't end with a call. When I saw his car pull up around noon, I was ready. He sat in the car for a moment before knocking. I opened the door and leaned against the frame. He didn't greet me or ask about his granddaughter's birthday. His first words were, "You drained the account." I confirmed it. He waited for an explanation, but I gave none. When he asked why, I said funding their getaway wasn't part of our deal. He started to argue, then said they needed a break, that life had been tough, and they were worn out. That's when it hit me. They felt no remorse. None. I asked if lying to skip their granddaughter's birthday was okay. I asked if getting away meant cutting us out of their lives. He looked at me and said something I'll never forget. It wasn't about her. That's when something inside me shattered. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I just nodded, stepped back, and closed the door. Softly, I stood there, hearing his footsteps fade and his car drive away. An hour later, my sister called. I let it ring. Her voicemail was angry. "You're overreacting. It was just a trip. You could have warned us before cutting us off. You embarrassed us. We couldn't even pay for dinner." She ended with, "We're family," as if it were a weapon. I didn't respond. Then came the texts from her, then my mother. One included a screenshot of a declined transaction with the message, "Satisfied." My mother called. I didn't pick up but listened to her voicemail. Her tone was calm but manipulative. "I don't understand why you're doing this. You must be overwhelmed. I'm hurt. Please come to your senses. You've always been the reliable one, the one I could depend on." I checked the bank statements I'd ignored, pages of luxury expenses. Restaurant deliveries, high-end purchases, hotel reservations, flights, spa visits, amusement park tickets. They hadn't just lied about being sick. They'd planned the trip months in advance. All their talk of hardship was a lie. They were living extravagantly on my money without a hint of shame. The next morning, my sister's email arrived. 3 paragraphs of fury, calling me selfish, theatrical, and cruel. She claimed I'd traumatized my nephew by declining his card at a store. My mother texted later, pretending to care, "We miss you. Come over for dinner. The house feels empty without you." My father's message was direct. "Call me before you make this worse." That afternoon, the family group chat exploded. My sister wrote, "You'd ruin our family over money. Is that what you're teaching your daughter?" My mother added, "We didn't steal. You don't know what we've been through." My father's contribution, "This stops now. Call me." That night, I scrolled through my sister's social media again. The timestamps showed their spa day was 2 days before the party. The much-needed steak dinner was posted while we were cutting the cake. Then I recognized the resort in their photos, the same one I'd booked for my parents' milestone anniversary. I logged into the site and found they'd used my saved payment details to book their trip. Around 9 p.m., my nephew knocked on the door. He handed me a paper bag and a small gift, saying, "Mom said you'd get it." Inside was a slice of my mother's famous pie and a framed photo of us all at my daughter's 3rd birthday. On the back, my mother had written, "We can still be this." I tossed the pie and left the frame on the counter. My spouse saw it later. That night she said what I couldn't. "They didn't care about you or your daughter. They only cared when the money stopped. They need to face the consequences publicly." The next day, I shared the truth online, photos of the empty party, their vacation pictures, and the bank statements. I didn't name them, but the evidence was clear. The fallout was immediate. My sister deleted her accounts. My father lost his part-time job. My mother's side business was hit with negative reviews. They were shunned. Friends pulled away. My nephew was taken out of school. I didn't feel triumphant, just finished. The last I heard, they were staying with a friend in another city. But the truth followed them. I never removed the post. Sometimes, the best response is letting people face the consequences of their actions and giving them the silence they've earned. In the weeks that followed, the weight of it all settled over me like a heavy fog. I expected to feel something: anger, relief, justice, but there was only a hollow calm. My daughter, thankfully, moved on faster than I did. Kids are like that. She stopped asking about her grandparents, and when she did mention them, it was in passing, like they were figures from a distant memory. My spouse, however, was livid in a way that surprised me. She'd always been the steady one, the voice of reason, but this betrayal cut deep. One evening, as we sat on the couch after putting our daughter to bed, she turned to me and said, "They don't get to walk away from this. Not like this." I didn't understand until the next morning, when I found her at the kitchen table, her laptop open, typing fiercely. She was drafting a message to the few relatives who'd reached out, the ones who'd stayed neutral or quietly sided with my parents. She wasn't seeking sympathy or taking sides. She was laying out facts, dates, amounts, screenshots. "They need to know," she said, her voice firm, "not for us, for them, so no one else gets blindsided." I didn't stop her. Meanwhile, my family's silence stretched on. No more calls, no more texts, no more guilt-tripping messages. It was as if they'd disappeared. But the internet doesn't forget. Every now and then, someone would message me or mention me in a post. A distant relative, a former neighbor, asking if the rumors were true. I never replied. The truth was already out there. Then one afternoon, my daughter came home from school with a crumpled note in her backpack. It was from her cousin, my nephew. In messy, childlike handwriting, it read, "I miss you. Mom says we can't talk anymore. I don't know why." My heart sank. I hadn't thought about how this would affect him. He was just a kid, caught in something he didn't understand. I showed the note to my spouse, who sighed and rubbed her forehead. "What do we do?" I asked. She was quiet for a long time before answering. "We protect our daughter, but we don't punish him." So I wrote back a few lines. "I miss you too. None of this is your fault. You can always reach out to me." I slipped the note into her backpack the next day, unsure if it would reach him. A month later, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was my father. He didn't yell. He didn't demand. His voice was weary, older than I remembered. "We lost everything," he said. I didn't respond. "Was it worth it?" he asked. This time I answered, "You made the choice, not me." There was a long pause, then quietly he hung up. That was the last time we spoke. The holidays came and went. We celebrated quietly, just the three of us. No tense family gatherings, no forced smiles, no empty promises. In a strange way, it was peaceful, but peace has a price. My daughter still asks about them sometimes, especially around birthdays and holidays. I don't lie, but I don't tell her the full story either. One day, when she's older, she'll want the whole truth, and I'll give it to her. Until then, we move forward. Because sometimes, the hardest part isn't cutting ties. It's learning to live with the quiet afterward. Years passed, and the chaos that had once upended our lives faded into memory. My daughter grew taller. Her childhood questions about her grandparents faded with time. She never stopped wondering, but she learned not to ask. Some wounds heal better left alone. Then, on an ordinary Wednesday, the past resurfaced. I was at work when my phone buzzed. An email notification. The subject line was simple, "I'm sorry." It was from my sister. The message was long, honest, and unlike anything she'd ever sent before. She didn't make excuses. She didn't blame me. She just told the truth. About how their lives had fallen apart after that summer. How shame had followed them like a shadow. How she'd started therapy and begun to see things clearly. "I don't expect forgiveness," she wrote, "but I needed you to know I see it now. What we did, what we lost." I read it 3 times before closing my laptop. That night, I showed it to my spouse. She watched me carefully as I waited for her reaction. "What do you want to do?" she asked. I didn't know. The next morning, I found my daughter, now a teenager, at the kitchen table, scrolling through old photos on her phone. She looked up when I walked in. "Dad," she said suddenly. "Remember when I used to ask about Grandma and Grandpa all the time?" My breath caught. "Yeah, I remember." She turned the screen toward me. It was a picture from her 6th birthday, the one they'd missed. She was smiling at the camera, frosting on her face, surrounded by empty chairs. "I think about that day a lot," she said, "not because they weren't there, but because you and Mom made sure I had a great time." Something inside me broke open. Later that week, I replied to my sister. A few lines. "Thank you for your message. I can't promise anything, but if you'd like to meet, just us, no expectations, I'll be at the cafe on Oak Street this Saturday at 10. She arrived early, sitting nervously by the window. When I walked in, she stood so quickly she almost tipped her chair. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just sat across from each other, 2 strangers tied by blood and fractured history. The first hour was tense, awkward, but then she said something unexpected. I kept all her birthday cards, every single one, even the years I didn't send them. She pulled out a small stack from her bag. Bright envelopes addressed to my daughter in her handwriting, dated year after year. "I don't know if she'd want them now," she said softly, "but I couldn't stop writing them. I took them home that day. They're still in my desk drawer, unopened." Some stories don't have tidy endings. Some bridges once burned can't be fully rebuilt. But time has a way of softening sharp edges, turning anger into regret, and regret into something quieter, something almost like peace. My daughter turns 18 next month. For the first time in years, I find myself staring at my phone, thumb hovering over my sister's contact. Maybe this year I'll tell her about the cards, or maybe I'll wait a little longer. After all, there's time.